Hey and welcome to ReadIT. Today we have one of my favorite subreddits, r/AskReddit. And today the user Gina Genely is asking, what was the best thing the quiet kid has said or done in class? 7th grade, Germany. Kid moved from Russia to Germany and ended up in my class. He didn't speak German at all, 0. That dude was huge for a kid in 7th grade, and the moment I saw him I thought, ain't no way I'll F with that guy, ever. But kids are ruthless, you know. So it turns out he had a bad stutter and some kids decided to make fun of him, being protected by the fact that he had no clue what they were saying. Of course he still got the basic gist of what was going on, and to my surprise, he just dealt with it. But that one time the teacher asked him something, and as he tried his utter best to answer, one kid started laughing out loud and I could feel something snap in the Russian kid. Now I expected to witness some quality Russian bee slaps about to start flying towards that bully, but no, he ate it up, excused himself and went to the bathroom. 1 minute later and we hear him yelling at the top of his lungs. Another minute later he comes back to class, sits down and just has this look on his face that says, continue. This guy was big enough to take that bully and throw him around like a 5-year-old throws around her Barbie dolls, yet he decided to scream off his anger and frustration in the bathroom. I respected that a lot and decided to befriend him. Without a doubt one of the purest souls I've ever met in my entire life. Yeah, I wouldn't mess with that guy, lol. We had an Russian exchange student at my high school. I was teasing him a bit about something, just trying to pry at him a bit and open up, as he was really quiet. Then he just turns to me and says, "You want me to put bomb in your house? Alexei, if you're out there I hope you're doing good, pal." Believe me, it takes a lot of willpower to avoid starting confrontations like that. I've always been a big guy myself, not necessarily muscular, but I have some mass and I could probably do some damage if I charged someone, and I've had to restrain myself from doing anything violent so many times in middle school/high school. Didn't help that the people who picked on me were always really short for their age and it would take very little effort to just end it, but I was already on admin's bad side. The quiet, very smart kid in my science class, 25 years ago, never really said much, got good grades, tried to keep his head down so as not to get picked on for being the nerd. One day he corrected the teacher on some chemistry point. I don't even remember what it was. The teacher says, "Young man, I have forgotten more about chemistry than you currently know." Well, at least now we have identified the problem. Whatever the teacher said after that was lost in the uproar. There was this kid, not really the quiet kid, but he was kind of nerdy and was generally viewed as being a straight kid, no trouble or anything, always got good grades, etc. I don't think I ever even heard him cuss. Not even say hell or damn. One day we were goofing around in rehearsal, we were in a play together at a time, and one of the other guys said something stupid like, "My dick is a ½ inch, from the ground." The other kid jumped in without missing a beat, "Yeah, if you're laying face down." Caught everyone off guard. We told the first guy to just leave the room because he would never recover from that burn coming from that guy. One guy never really interacted with people. He participated in class and got great grades but didn't really click with anyone. This was my first year of high school. We were eating lunch in the cafeteria and some people started yelling for help. That guy was sitting next to me 1 second, jumping over 3 tables the next. He grabbed a girl from behind and performed the Heimlich maneuver on her and dislodged some food from her throat. 400 students became really silent. The girl started coughing and the teachers arrived and we all heard her say, "I'm okay," and everyone cheered. Guy just walked back to the table and ate the rest of his lunch and tried to go on with a normal day. Best part was he didn't want to be thanked, he just wanted to be left alone, and we understood. I did the Heimlich on a woman in a steak restaurant once, and when I finished the woman and her friend were grateful, but I felt weird as I was afraid I might have broke a rib. I went back to my table and really didn't want any attention. Strange part was when she started choking, the waitresses all disappeared. You would think that with the product they sold they all would have been trained on this procedure. In middle school there was a kid with autism. Super quiet and almost never made a noise beyond a whisper, but super sweet kid if you got to know him. Anyway, we never realized until 7th grade that this boy had the strength of a fucking titan. Field day, 7th grade. All the boys decide to do an arm wrestling contest. The biggest boys were obviously at the top. The quiet kid was off playing one of the games with some girls. He comes back, sees what we're doing, sits down and just rips through everyone. Just fucking bam, bam, bam. All the way to the top. He was giggling the entire time too. Obviously we were all amazed, and so we wanted to see just how strong he is. So we went to do the tug of war. When I tell you he yoinked all of us, I am not joking. We realized that day whose balls had dropped the furthest over the summer. Oh. Did I mention that, according to what he whispered to me, he had never worked out outside of PE? Will you shut the F up, Brandon, or is that too hard for you? Had a very cocky kid in one of my high school English classes who thought he knew more than the teacher. He would constantly make it hard for her to interact with the other students, seemed to get off on challenging anything she had to say, and prevented other students from offering input of their own. I could be wrong, but I always had the impression that this teacher was still relatively new because she looked like a deer caught in headlights whenever this kid acted like a jackass. One day, he was giving her a particularly hard time, and it caused a typically very quiet girl who always sat in the back to snap that day. Brandon didn't say another word. The teacher scolded the girl for saying F, and that was that. She did what the rest of us wanted to, but never had the guts to actually go through with. Good for her, and I hope it made Brandon think twice about terrorizing innocent teachers just trying to make a living by teaching some bratty-ass kids. We had a deaf colleague. She was literally the quiet one because she was always focused on reading the lips. One day, the teacher asked without looking to us if she could erase the board. Nobody said no, and, of course, our colleague didn't hear. Teacher notes went gone in a second, and our colleague, who was still copying the content and didn't have much control of her voice volume, murmurs loud and clear to everyone, "Son of a dog." If you're in the US, the school is supposed to provide a note taker for deaf students. It's virtually impossible to watch an interpreter and / or read the teacher's lips and take notes at the same time. I was a note taker in college for the deaf students. This may get buried, and it's my husband's story, but we went to the same high school, so I knew this kid too. The teacher was teaching a lesson on velocity and said something to the tune of "Nothing comes to a stop without slowing down first." The quiet kid stands up and says he disagrees and he can prove that it's wrong. And no word of a lie, that kid ran full tilt, no hesitation, right into the brick wall. Like, splat, right out of a cartoon. I believe at this point the class stopped the lesson on velocity and moved on to something else. Oh God, I can picture it, LOL, I hope he didn't suffer any lasting damages. Oh man. I have a great one. In 7th grade there was this girl in my class, very quiet, very nerdy, frizzy hair, glasses, unfashionable clothes, the whole deal. Because kids who are cool in middle school are assholes, a few boys started doing that whole fake ask out thing. They'd tease her in class, ask her to go on a date, make kissy faces, etc. I told them to knock it off a few times, and so did some others, but I was a target at the time too, so it wasn't much help. She mostly ignored them for a while, very much just trying to read her book and tune them out. Until one day while we're waiting for class to start and this one dude is really laying it on thick, and I guess she'd just had enough. She calmly stood up, looked him in the eye, picked up her desk and yeeted it. It didn't hit him or anyone or do any damage to the classroom or the desk. But it scared the shit out of those boys and they never bothered her again. Ed was a quiet kid in my 8th grade class. One day in gym class, one of the older 9th graders, person had also failed a year, so he was 2 years older than us, began to pick on Ed. This went on for a minute or so with thrash talk, and then progressed to shoving. Next thing we know, Ed jumps in the air, spins and places a beautiful hook kick to this guy's head. Turns out, Ed was a ninja. In reality, 2nd degree black belt in Taekwondo. Ed's popularity increased 100x that day and he never got picked on again. It was awesome. So basically Ed put them to bed? 8th grade, history period. My good friend was a quiet, wholesome girl that I had befriended a few years prior. We sat at desks that were formed into group cubes so that group work would be made easy. Well, my friend was sat next to this extremely obnoxious popular guy that ran his mouth and made fun of those whom he deemed lesser than him. One day we were doing individual work when all of a sudden I hear my friend yell, "Why won't you ever just shut up?" She then stood up, took our massive history textbook and whacked him right in the back of the head with it. She moved to sit next to me, and our history teacher just returned to reading whatever text he had at his desk. My friend and the teacher became true heroes that day. Something similar happened in my HS geography class. The smart Alex took it too far with the girl who sat a couple of rows across from him. She got so frustrated that she took her book and hit him right on the back of the head. Smart Alec turns to our teacher and asks, "Are you gonna do anything about that?" The teacher turns to the girl and says, "Those textbooks are brand new. Don't throw one again." He went back to grading papers and said no more.